spent a lot of time at the first Course in Miracles monastery in the world. And it's never been over 40 some people. It's now in a range of 35 people. But this project is an example of one of the chapters in the book called Collaboration, where we have no other purpose. We join together in this purpose for healing. We cannot get anything personally out of it. No money goes to us to pile away, you know, and for the future or anything like that. All our needs are taken care of, but we live by guidance, and that is like a moment-to-moment practice. So we had no idea this book project would come in. We had no idea this tour would come in. We had no idea where we would go. And it continues that way. We may go to Europe for a tour, or we may not. We don't know. People are kind of, you know, speaking about it and kind of sharing, and so we just wait till it becomes very clear. And that's one of the other chapters in the book, is guidance, which ultimately, as A Course in Miracles says in it, this book, when you're finished, the book is a beginning, not an ending, because what you're there to do is to hear the voice for the Spirit, which guides you for the rest of your life, living in purpose. And that's what, we want to share with you tonight. We want to share with you the practical application. And it's really, and more it's becoming simpler and simpler, and we see we're actually welcoming, like the reader was actually not really a Course in Miracles student. We had to bring them into our hearts, actually, before we could actually even get going on the book, because we did a first round of the book and it failed. You know, we're like, okay, what's going on? You know, what happened here? And the publisher said, oh, don't you remember, you know, you were going to make a book that said this and was going to address these people, and it was going to do this and this and this, give personal anecdotes. And we're like, oh, well, okay, you're right. It's like, oh my God. And we're like, how are we gonna, how would we do? We didn't find that stuff. So we had to actually, in a sense, really bring the reader to our heart. And there was a kind of a beautiful experience in that. And to just re-examine everything that we thought we knew, which is what the Course is teaching us, and start over. And we started our second round of what the book was to be, and became, with more guidance, became clearer and clearer. So it's been miraculous. Not a bit of inspiration has dwindled. I mean, you know how you're at work and you're like kind of up, and you're better to go up and then down, up and down. It's not like that. Once you really get into your life of purpose, you can just grab your project or the people and just feel the same constancy of purpose and that inspiration, which just sort of, you know, tickles in your heart, and you're like, oh my God, okay, you know, everything's new and we don't know what we're doing, and so it all just unfolds miraculously. And that was my experience, and we kept coming to moments where, you know, we really didn't know what to do next. And we would just wait and listen and share our thoughts and just let it unfold. Really, let it be shown is another helpful phrase. You know, if we're open and we've taken off some parameters and we're just willing to go into the next direction, the next step, the Spirit will show us, you know, what the next direction is. And that's been my experience on this path.
Yeah, and it's actually not just with this book that we live moment to moment and ask for what is next. It's with our whole lives. It's become that way, and that's because of A Course in Miracles. And the ego in us is sometimes like not in agreement with that. It can become very intense to not have solid plans for the future, and to not plan our lives. And for me, it was just a radical shift when Course in Miracles came into my life in 2005. It was radical. That's all I can say. How many of you are studying Course in Miracles? So it's just a few. So, and probably many of you are on another spiritual path where you also feel like you've done a very radical shift, so you know what I'm talking about. But for me, it started in 2005, and it was just this huge urge inside to not compromise anymore, to not act as if the world has the power over my life and that I have to play some kind of part that I don't feel satisfied with. So it became, once I got clear with the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles, because the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles are so important and so helpful. They clarify why we're here and how to get out of here, in fact. And I don't mean that we need to get out of here, but we need to make peace. We need to forgive the illusion, the projection, the projected world. It's a lot like Buddhism. It talks about, Buddhism talks about Maya and the illusion, and of course Miracles talks about the illusion that we have projected from what we don't like. It actually explains it this way, that we believe something dark about ourselves. We believe something ugly about ourselves, and we really believe that's in there, and we don't like it. So we project it outward, and we see it as people, situations, circumstances. Often we are a victim, and that's what we project because of something we feel inside that we don't like, and we think it's in there. But the Course says one thing. It says, what if you look within and see that there is no darkness there? Because it's believed darkness inside that makes us project the world outside. So when we do go within, through meditation or through the technique that A Course in Miracles provides, which is true forgiveness, that's how we transcend our own illusions. And I say our own because it's actually our own. It's never somebody else. And the ego will always have us believe that it is outside, we are a victim. It's not our own. So the key is to know and take it back. Okay, it's my illusion. And that's also very, very, very empowering, because then we know it's the power of our own mind that can undo it. And so that's like very compressed conclusion of Course in Miracles teaching, and what I gave myself over to in that year of 2005, and I was overjoyed to read it. The summary of the Course is nothing unreal exists. Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And that concludes this whole thing of projection. Projection is what's unreal and that doesn't exist, and what's real is the only thing that exists. And to know that is the peace of God. And recently, too, has come to me more and more through the last few weeks, and it's kind of like increasing what I'm looking at or what I'm working with is this stuff, and this is the core of A Course in Miracles, and I have worked with it for 14 years, but I think I'm on a deeper level now, and I'm working on this, the dreamer of the dream and the hero of the dream. The dreamer of the dream versus the hero of the dream. the hero of the dream is a human being that is has its own will and has its plans and its preferences and its likes and its dislikes, and that's the one that I need to forgive. And the hero of the dream is actually a victim of the dream. So even today I heard several times about the dreamer of the dream, which is what we want to become, or want to realize that we are. It's the Christ mind, and it's the one that is seeing the dream as it is. It's seeing what it made up and letting go of what it made up so that it can be led through by the Spirit. So that is what is up for me right now, and that's probably what I can talk about. That's how it works for us. We can only talk from our own current experience, and that's how this whole tour has been for us. We don't plan the tour, we receive invitations, and so that's why we're here. And we just talk about what's present and current, and that is very inspiring because it's always fresh and always new, and we don't have to have this pressure of planning or coming up with something, because we're just called to trust the Spirit from within. So we're very happy to be here, and we can share about anything really, and we're very happy to answer questions too as we go along tonight. We've had some deep experiences coming on to this path and solidifying it. For myself, I had an experience of angels visiting me at one point when I had some doubts about taking a step. Two very, very loving, very, very big angel beings showed up and told me that I could take my steps. And that was so empowering, and it was so real. It was an experience beyond perception and beyond the illusion. It was an experience of the truth and an experience of who I am in truth. And it empowered me to start to undo the illusion and take some steps. And that is all I have to focus on. That is all I can allow myself. I can actually give myself permission to focus on that one thing, the forgiveness work. And that was so freeing. I don't have to live up to the roles that are expected of me, as a mother or a daughter or a lover or a friend, or I don't have to live up to any of them. I can drop them, and I'm encouraged to drop them, in fact, and only work on my forgiveness. And in that, I will work with my roles, because if the roles are still believed in, they will, they are in my life. So I had to work with the roles, and that's one of the things of this practical, so super practical spirituality, A Course in Miracles, and this book. We have made it super practical. David Hoffmeister is such a practical guy. He's such a practical teacher, because he is called and guided to say the most practical things to lead out of the dream. So that's what we collected in the book, and we even put an exercise in each chapter to help practically apply the teaching in there. So yeah. What was starting with her? You want to say something more there?
Practical guide through there, exercises and things.
Yeah.
There's 17 chapters in the book, and what's amazing is, like I say, things do seem to get simpler and simpler, And in a sense, you know, there are many paths. There are many paths, and of course, miracles is just one path. But what we've found in finding practical application of, you know, a spiritual practice is that you can use, well, you can see each chapter is something that can be explored in your life. Everything from trust to private thoughts to guilt to how fear shows up, how we live our lives and roles, as Jenny was explaining, collaboration, and it's basically an inspiration, really. I mean, we have to be inspired. You know, if we're going to go on the spiritual path, you know, inspiration feels like a good use, you know, a means to the path. So
you can hear in spirit.
In spirit.
Inspiration.
Yeah. And really, and what I have found too, actually a literal experience, and David speaks about it too, but in the earlier days, and for me even still now, I find a tickle in my heart. Like if I'm getting ready to go somewhere or something, I can feel a tickle, or if there's a project or a situation, and you know, I feel the calling of it through a tickle in my heart, and it's sort of a way to kind of prompt me and pay attention to that, because it sort of like grows and it brings really miracle-mindedness, you know, to the situation. Yeah, there's special relationship and holy relationship is addressed, and there are probably other spiritual paths that address them in different ways, but holy relationship really is with the Spirit. I mean, it's like it's a devotional life where the prayer and the connection to our source, you know, or to our guides, so that they can lead us in the right direction. And that's what really a holy relationship is with, you know, and ultimately with oneness, or with God, with Spirit. But it is practically applied in special relationship, which is basically the human mode of, okay, we're gonna get together and we're gonna live till we die, and you know, compromise with each other, and live based basically on some form outcomes, which the Spirit never really looks to as a result. The Spirit doesn't go, well, we got to make this pretty, you know, or the Spirit's just like in there for the healing. He's cheering us on. The Spirit's cheering us on for the healing and for the awareness of bringing the darkness to the light, bringing the unconscious mind to the consciousness, to awareness. So the book really uses a lot of those kind of general terms, just because they can be applied to most spiritualities and can be somewhat relatable to, you know, to world spiritualities in general.
When we say the word Spirit, or the Holy Spirit, like A Course in Miracles actually uses Christian language. It calls it the Holy Spirit, but it's actually our higher self. It's our true self. It's not outside of us. It's not some kind of power or force outside of us that comes over us. It's our true core self. And so, you know, it's the seeming ego is also not outside of us. It's also part of our mind that is just a self-doubt. A doubt thought. The ego is a doubt thought. So,
and intuition plays a part of that. Sometimes it literally feels like intuition for many of us, and we know it's right. And other times it feels literally like Spirit. Usually, you know, the Spirit can often, especially, I guess more lately, but the Spirit will kind of lead me into directions of where I feel uncomfortable, and talking to a stranger is pretty uncomfortable, and we've had a lot of different opportunities to do that. We felt we were guided to specific bookstores, several of them along our way, in California and in Florida and on up in Virginia, and every time we felt guided and we checked in with each other, we're like, yep, this is it. Like, okay, it's a doubt that would come in and be like, why would we just go right into a Christian like a Christian store and just say, hey, here's a book, you know? It's like, that doesn't make sense. You know, it's counterintuitive initially, but when it's guided, I walked in through the door and...
I tried. He said quietly.
We were in, actually we were driving through Savannah, Georgia, and we passed through Savannah, but I already felt like, no, I'm feeling we need to check the bookstores out, you know? Well, we just passed the exit for Savannah. It's like, well, wait a second, something's not right here. Oh, you know, just go with the prompt, you know, on the prompt, the Holy Spirit prompt. So we check it. There's a bookstore 7 minutes up the road. Okay.
It's called The Bold Soul.
The Bold Soul Boutique. Okay, and we read a little bit more about it, and you know, we shouldn't have read anything, you know, it's like, because that's our ego trying to figure something out. But it's
a gift shop, it's a Christian, and they sell clothes. They didn't seem to sell books, but the Holy Spirit was prompting us, go there, go to both of us. We heard it, and we were still resistant. And this is how it can be, you know, with guidance. Because we think we're smart. We think we know best. We think we know best based on our past experience. And it's such a block to freedom and, you know, being joyful in the moment, to have this past learning all the time. So in that example, we were both having past learning, and actually we were quite doubtful, which was reflected in we drove the wrong way, or there was like some delay. It was supposed to be like a 5 or 6 minute trip from the highway, but it took more like 15 minutes. In that time, we were like, no, this could not be right. You know, all those ego doubt thoughts. But we stayed with the guidance because we knew it. And so when we walked in, Greg immediately starts to talk to the woman behind the counter, and it is a holy encounter. Of course, Miracles talks about holy encounters, and it says, each and every encounter you have should be a holy encounter. It can be, and you can invite that, you know. So we had that with her, and she's like, well, I'll only buy 4 books from you today. It's actually the first time anybody in a bookstore, you know, or Christian gift shop, for that sake, buys any books from us directly. They all used to just say, no, we'll order it from our resources. But she just bought 4 books, and she was really happy about it. And it was, you know, we don't normally try to, it's not like we do missionary work or try to spread it like that, but we do enjoy following guidance. And this woman, she said to us, oh, I need this especially today. She said, I had such a rough morning, and, you know, husband and kids. And she looked in the table of contents and said, oh, I need to read this. And she pointed at the trust chapter. And then she asked me too, what would you say I would start with, which chapter? And I said, I pray, and I heard forgiveness. I said, you might enjoy the forgiveness chapter. And she said, that's exactly what I heard too. So that was really beautiful. Just, yeah.
Can I ask the question?
Yes.
I want to say first that I come here without any knowledge at all of the Course in Miracles. I've never read any books connected to it, and I haven't delved into it. I just heard about it. So I come with a blank slate about, but as you've been talking, the way I'm relating to it is, it sounds like you're talking about a life to live that's guided by one's connection to their heart, to their spirit, and guided by that, you know, to be solid in that, rather than being guided by what the mind can do and where the mind can take one.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, if one is wanting to live a life that's really guided by one's connection to spirit, how important is the practice of meditation? Because for me, the practice of meditation has always been an opportunity to experience not being involved with one's mind, to be connected to spirit during those blissful times in a meditation practice when you experience that. So how important is a meditation practice to enable you to be in a place where you're more connected?
Yeah.
the spirit.
I would say the difference here is that you actively work with your blocks to peace of mind. Meditation is a part of it, but it's more active. I used to be a meditator. I was very drawn to meditation, and I went to Maharishi University to do TMCD for a year. But I was there for 3 weeks, and then I was guided away from that. And I came to David, and he said, this is a different path. This is a path of relationships and forgiveness. And it is, I would say it's a faster path, that you work actively with your resistances and your attack thoughts and your doubt thoughts and your anger, or your, you become really active in your heart with that, or in your mind, to forgive. Because the Course says one key line about forgiveness is forgive the world and forgive your brothers and sisters for what they did not do. Which is an aha moment. It can be, that can be enraging in itself to hear that, because we all have experience of they did that to me. In the past, people did this and this and this to me, and to say they did not do it, that seems schizophrenic or something. But when we know the metaphysics, that it is a dream, and that we need to take the dream back, we can actually say that if those things didn't happen, we think they happened, we feel like they happened, and that's a golden opportunity to look at our beliefs, because it's our own beliefs that project it, so we can free ourselves. And I have certainly done that, and we both have. I had some experiences in the past that I thought happened, that I had memories come up, and I started to allow the emotions up, and it was, I felt very much victimized by bigger people. I was a child, and I allowed all those emotions, and that was how I worked with it, to forgive my belief, because I am mind, and of course in Miracles uses the term mind, and I dreamt this dream up. I attracted this dream because I wanted it so, and now I can undo it, and by allowing all those feelings up. And it was so freeing to do that, and it involved abuse and stuff like that, really like difficult stuff, and now I'm free from it. I'm no longer angry at the seeming victimizer. I don't even see him as a victimizer anymore. He's not. He's a holy child of God along with me, and I love him, and I feel the oneness, and that's the practical. And Greg also can share probably about experiences of undoing belief in sickness, very quick and fast shift in mind, of taking over the power, having the power in the mind to release sickness symptoms, and Jesus. So of course, Miracles is channeled from Jesus' mind, the Christ mind, Christ consciousness, and sometimes I just forget something about. Let me just see. We'll come back, but something about sickness. Yeah, now I know. Sickness is guilt taken out upon the body. So the mind feels guilty because of beliefs it has separated from God, from its own source, from the oneness, and there is a guilt there. So the metaphysical explanation is that we believe we turned our back to God. We believe that God is angry at us, and that's this inherent guilt that most people are probably not in touch with it. They wouldn't say, I'm guilty. But when you go deeper inside, you may get in touch with guilt and shame. And that's what we project onto the body as sickness. And it's the mind that is sick. The body can be however it is, but it's the mind that is sick. It's the thoughts. So that's why we always need to work with our thoughts. And it's very, very empowering. Greg one time had some resistance to working with me on, we were gonna prepare for a meeting like this. And he was just floating around, and I was very focused. And he seemed to have some nausea and some sickness symptoms. I noticed.
We were in Scotland on the coast actually at the time. We had a friend of ours, John, who invited us to stay for a time at this nice little place. But yeah, I was really restless, and but I just started having symptoms like immediately. Every symptom, just sweating, the headache, the pains, the shaking, the nausea, the diarrhea starting to come. I mean, it was just all starting to come. It's like, oh, and then the thoughts come. Oh, what did I eat? And this and that, and this and that. But one of the things, I've joined the community 7 years ago, and 3 times I got sick. But I did not stay with it for very long. That time it was less than 45 minutes. And other times were different amounts, a couple hours and stuff like that. But each time the first thing I recognized was that my mind was sick. But I had to look at, it's important to look at all the thoughts around the food and this and that, but then let it go. And I remember walking out, and I was gonna just to check in with Jenny and stuff, but I could tell that, in a sense, she ignored me. I might have said something to her, and I realized, I knew that this was for me, this was my work right then and there, because I knew there was something about my avoidance of joining with her, because I was very clear. I didn't want to connect. I didn't want to sit down on the bed. I didn't want to go on the computer. I didn't want to. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I wanted to be free and do whatever I wanted to do, basically. But I recognized really that I had a lot of resistance to joining, and the Course uses that word joining a lot too. But it's just like coming together and having a shared common interest, and I didn't want to do that. And I recognized some other thoughts in my mind, and I was, okay, I'm gonna work with this. And I started looking at it, and I made a decision. I said, okay, I'm gonna go outside, and I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm going to go to the North Sea, and I'm gonna throw up in the North Sea and just do my purging, or something else is gonna happen. And because I knew something else was going on. I knew I had a power to choose. On some level, I knew the teachings. I knew that the mind could only be sick, and especially since I've given every day of my life to the Holy Spirit for a purpose, there's no reason for me to be sick. I don't have a reason for it. So I went outside and I just started going, okay, I remembered David's lesson he used when he was on the toilet, ready to get sick and when wondering about his food poisoning. And it's, I'm not a body. And my mind cannot attack. That's why we use the word mind, because there's power in mind. My mind, if I'm a mind, I cannot attack, because I'm not a body. Therefore, I cannot be a body, and I cannot be sick. And I repeated this prayer 3 times, and there was a little bit of other thoughts in there too in prayer, and just connecting. And I prayed very deeply, knowing that I really wanted to join and to have a purposeful evening and not go off into ego and just do whatever. So I said that prayer like sincerely. I could feel it. I had a shiver run up and down my spine. I went 2 feet off the ground. I went boom, and it was like, whoa. It was like, whoo. everything shivering, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't want to be sick. It's like, I don't want to be sick. I did that 2 more times, that prayer, and felt the same shiver up and down my spine, just like a lightning bolt, just right out there. And in between there, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to the ocean. I think I'm going to go down the road instead. And so you could see I had choices. I had choice points. Every point along the way, I had to do this or this. I could do this or this. And it was like that. And the 3rd time, I was like, okay, I'm going to take myself a really nice stroll. It was sort of like a little bit drizzly out, you know. There were a few lights, street lights. It was just really dark. It was winter time in Scotland, which is basically rain. And so I walked down the road about a 1/3 of a mile, and I turned around and I said, okay, I'm going to go back. Started feeling really, really good in my heart, just ready to join, and just kind of clearing and just being grateful, and just walking down back to the house. And I walked in, and I don't know how long that was.
He was away for 35 minutes. It wasn't long.
Probably.
And he came back and he was just full of presence. And he just came up to me and said, I'm going to join with you. And it was just so different. And I had not engaged in the sickness, which felt like that was the key there. I didn't need to get into an interpersonal thing, although when he was in the sickness, he tried to get me to join him and maybe, feel bad for him or something. But I wasn't going to do that because I was in joy in the spirit, and I didn't need to do that. It's like no need for that. So, and I think that's what A Course in Miracles talks about as true empathy. And because I know who he is, he's not the sickness. And so then when he came back, he was ready to join with me, and we had a wonderful gathering that evening. So
yeah, that's all guided too. Like, this is not a recipe for how you should behave each time, because I had enough strength, and the Spirit obviously didn't guide her to say anything to me in that moment, which was perfect, because I was like, I got another decision to make, so I went outside. And it played out that way, but guidance is just highly individualized.
Yeah.
You don't really know what it is. But I think it was the fact that I had enough strength and recognition and willingness to look at this in my mind, that I had a turnaround. And this is not like magic. This is not like, we're not, it's not so much playing with energy and doing different things, or trying to analyze anything in the chakras, or this is like pure mind and a decision. It's clean and simple, and we have the power. It's like the power within us. We don't have to go through any trainings, really, although both of us have in some ways, but we also let some of them go. They're stepping stones along the way. And it's an empowerment to our true self and to the Spirit. And, it's just, the path is a recognition of the Spirit and the Spirit in each one of us. And to share that. And it gets simpler. It seems to get simpler.
yeah. I want to say something about this true empathy, because I feel like it is a key that is so helpful for us all to bring with us. And the words "don't touch" come to mind. Don't touch. When someone around you is, out of their mind, if they are, out of alignment, and maybe there is a pattern for them to call on you constantly, and you act out the pattern because of the role that you have with that person. But to start to practice actively, don't touch it. Don't go there unless you are clearly guided, unless you are in your true self, or just unless you feel connected to God, to Spirit, and you can go with that. Then you can be truly helpful. But if that's not there, you're going to act out of false empathy, which is very common in the world, and that's how the interpersonal interactions and conflicts happen all the time, and you're going to be so angry at them, you know, for demanding you, and feel guilty when you don't go. But that's all the game. So don't touch is a very good practice. Don't touch unless you call for, like, unless you have the inner call, inner inspiration. And that's just the message I want to share over and over again, that the permission to follow our inspiration, permission to do that the angel beings gave to me, and I decided to follow it, and I have never regretted that decision. Never. Even though the world around me were quite vicious at times and complaining and said, why did you do that, and why did you let me down? But in the end, they have all actually come back and changed. Those things don't play out anymore. So it's amazing. So I recommend A Course in Miracles as a path, just because it's so fast. It took a couple of years to just transform so much of my limited mind. So it's very, very encouraging. And I feel more and more, I just feel also to be quiet. Again, before we started this tour, I had this thought, how am I going to be able to be on tour and speak? Because I need the Spirit all the time, and I don't want to speak unless I hear the Spirit, unless it's really inspired. And I still have so much to learn. I found I have so much to take in and to join with the Holy Spirit so fully. But still I was guided. We were guided to go on tour, and it's a very good undoing, because also another teaching of A Course in Miracles is to make everything the same, and to feel the sameness, to feel our true self everywhere. You know, and until we feel our true self everywhere, we still have some lessons to learn, and I think that's why I'm guided on the tour. And by the way, you hear this signal, it's actually a really cool lesson for today. Course in Miracles has 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. And it's a very practical way to help redirect the mind. And it's constant practice of certain ideas. And today's idea, it's a review lesson. So there are lessons, and then there are review lessons. And so today we practice two ideas. Salvation is my only function here. And it has explained what salvation is. Salvation is a very religious word, but salvation is basically the freeing of the mind, the freeing of the world. And that's my only purpose. And it says, remind yourself of this every hour. And then every half hour in between, you're going to remind yourself of another idea, which is, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential. So those two ideas constantly will redirect the mind wherever we find ourselves. So it's very practical to have those. And I forgot to turn it off, so that's why we hear this little sound. But it's fun. It's such a fun path, because we're consciously engaged with our own beliefs, you know, all the time. And that's for me, it's a very fun, you know, undoing. Because I grew up as a Christian, and I always believed that I would come to God or to heaven when I die, you know, and I could be lazy, or I could, you know, but when I started this path, I realized, no, I have some work to do with my mind, and that's how I will come to heaven. And it's true that heaven is at hand, that heaven is available. Heaven is not something after death. Heaven is a state of mind, in fact, and death is not, on the timeline, or heaven is not on the timeline. So it's actually, I like the picture of, like, not the timeline that is like that, but that we work with if our mind is like this, and we actually unravel ideas, beliefs, we uncover beliefs, and that's how we experience heaven within, the kingdom of heaven within. So all those little truths from the Bible, they are very profound, and there are some things that were true in the Bible, actually, like that. Yeah. It's inspiring. Because it would be hell if enlightenment was in the future, right? The ego loves that idea, because it makes the journey really hard. But if it is right, if it's available right now, like this moment is your miracle, and we have some practical tools to reach it, that's encouraging. That's what I like, and that's very inspiring to see, okay, what do I believe right now? If I'm not feeling enlightened right now, what is there in my mind? What can I look at? What can I forgive? What is the block? What is the pattern? It's a lot of patterns, a lot of habits that we live by, and those are super good to look at because they are heavy blocks. The patterns and the habits that we do. We can look at why do we do those? Why do we have those habits? Why do we have certain patterns? What do I believe? And we have actually put our salvation in those. That's why we act them out. It's a lot of them, or maybe all of them, have to do with the body and the body's well-being and what we believe is good for us. So to start to uncover those beliefs and to see, first of all, to see our patterns, our musts and our shoulds, and all those things that we're carrying around. And that's how we unravel and come to the kingdom of heaven within. Yeah.
Would you speak a little bit more about the undoing and maybe the first 50 lessons and the way that it undoes the mind, and how does it relate to the exercises in the book?
Yeah, it relates completely to the exercises in the book. So the first 50 lessons, I would probably need to even look at them, but they are very, very practical, talking a lot about the thoughts.
Undoing.
Yeah, the undoing of the erroneous thinking. And it says over and over, the first 15 lessons are all about how your thoughts project the world you see outside. It's all about it, and it's very reinforcing that. It's like opening us up to that idea that our thoughts create our reality. And Byron Katie talks a lot about look at your thoughts. And don't believe your thoughts. She's saying don't believe your own thoughts, and it's very good. And in the course, in the first 15 lessons, it goes in deeper in how to do it, how to let it go.
Nothing I see means anything.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
The first chapter is called Judgment and Knowledge in the book, and goes through and shares actually the depth to which we judge and are conditioned to judge, and even categories are judgments. Organic and conventional is a category and a judgment, and really, ultimately, they're both locking us into, whether you judge Trump or your neighbor or organic foods and conventional foods, there's a locking in there. It's locked in. It's I know what the world is, and you can see from the perspective of God or Holy Spirit, there's a little silliness going on there that a little body, one of 7 billion bodies, would go and say, I'm going to choose this and this and this, and we do this all day long and choose, whatever it is, whether it's an apple or an orange, you know. But the Spirit can guide us, you know, through a way to navigate to freedom and feeling freedom in every moment. But the exercise is to release, to go through your day and just observe how many times you have opinions in your mind. Even, you know, right now, it's like, look at the 50 opinions in your mind, and the times you want to jump in and speak over someone, or speak for someone, or correct them. These are all in the category of judgments and opinions. And even when we do it secretly, you know, it's the same, all the same thing.
We call it the I know mind. The
It's
I
the
know,
I know mind.
part of our mind. The little I know that is thinking it knows.
And the whole, you know, the whole book is an undoing. It's like, whether it's undoing an opinion about certain things, about your body or your brother, or in a relationship, it's sort of, it's inviting us to look at them so we can see that it's actually not giving us peace. And as you go along the path, you become sensitive to it. You realize, wow, that's really not a peaceful thought. And it's the silliest thing. I don't have to, you know, judge that thing, whatever the neighbor did. And so it's inviting us to, you know, undo in that way, looking at opinions through the day and seeing where we have temptations to have our own thoughts.
Ultimately, it's going to lead us to the I don't know state of mind, which is the scariest place for the deceived, for the ego self. It's scary to be in the I don't know, but for the Spirit in us, it's the best place ever to be in the I don't know, because then we can experience freedom, and we can be shown the next step, and we can just experience the joy of being in the lightness. So it's so encouraging. And yeah, I just love to share about this, and we're just really open to questions, more questions, and yeah.
I love how the Course says there are thousands of paths to God, to heaven, but that this is an accelerated path. And I know you said that earlier, because if you take and do the lessons, you know, with a sincere heart and mind, things really do change rapidly.
Yeah.
And then I love how David would say, and others, you know, you do the work, you establish that connection, and then it's not about the book. You come open-hearted, whatever that quote is, you know, to your God. And
You come, you know,
oops.
fully open mind. Yeah.
yeah, you create that connection.
Yeah.
But this is really, and it's been my experience, having done many, many paths as stepping stones, but wishing to be in an uncompromising state now too, just to be with the Course, you know, and with this work. Yeah, it's really made a difference, because a lot of people know me here from doing different paths too. I have been so joyful. I mean, how many little miracles did we experience in the last, you know, day and a half?
Yesterday,
Yeah. I mean, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So we start letting go of this other, and then just being in that present moment of now, and just, you know, allowing that inspiration and the connections and the holy encounters.
Yeah, it was so many, and those two men were part of it. Because she was just sharing with us. Yeah, and then I have this friend, and you know, this friend, and they kept showing up. Actually, the person she just talked about. We were up in Kripalu, and that's what happened. It was so sweet.
Yeah, I had just shared about Adrian and Mark. And then I turned around to get a brownie, so I said, thank goodness you asked for a brownie, or I wouldn't have seen him, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And I turn around and I throw my arms up, and there's Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened again and again, and then you were looking at Michael, who's behind me here,
Yeah.
and we had just talked about him. And then I actually call out in Kripalu, which no one ever does, Michael! You know, and he comes over.
Across the whole dining room.
Across the dining room, I project his name. So that was even a moment of embarrassment, but it wasn't, who cared, you know, that was just fun. But it kept happening, again and again. And he came over. Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, very practical. Also want to just feel to share too that, you know, I've started studying the Course in 2005. We both did around that time. And yeah, just living every day and just working with the book and just really seeing the different themes that come out or come through. I just wanted to say that this is one thing that's been helpful is it's a logical path. So if something does not make sense or if something is not logical, let us know, because we can share that and
clarify. We can talk more about it, because we share many concepts and we may not be able to follow our language, because we have been in this for several years now. So there may be things that feel very new or unclear. So yeah,
I'm just beginning all of this, and so all those spirit guidance things over the years that saved me in different situations.
Yeah.
Like you're crossing the street and it's a green light and you're told not to put your foot off the curb and you're like, that's ridiculous, and then you go back and the car comes flying through the red light type of thing. Like that, those kind of things that have happened to me. So that's not an angel or a guide, that's you? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's your true
God self?
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, so your true self will use many, many, many symbols and many helpers and guides and angels. And
which is comforting because you see this.
Yeah, the angels that showed up for me, they were my parents. They were my mom and dad.
And you say that you created that image. It wasn't really your parents, it was your...
Yeah, they were my parents' true self.
It was,
okay. And it was most helpful for me to have that symbol come in because I think it is because they had some kind of effect on me or some, you know, influence with their opinions about how I live my life and whether I should go to America or not. And I should definitely not go to America. That was their opinion. And then they show up in their higher self and say, go, we bless you, thank you, they said.
And they were genuinely in spirit.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to sort that out.
Oh yes, oh yes. It was beyond form.
And that's more becoming the norm for me. So of course people think I'm crazy all around me.
Yeah, no, it's guidance. So you can trust.
Well, they think I'm nuts. So it's like isolating.
Yeah, so while there is one mind and there's only one source of all the guidance and all the healing, there seems to be helpers and there seems to be many angels and helpers, and that's just because we need that, you know, we need that, and when we are fully realized, we will see there was only one. But the mind uses many, many different helpers and different ways, because we all need different ways because of how we have been wound in to the dream. We need different ways to wind out. That's why we resonate with different teachers, and like even on our trip, even our little community that we have 3 or 4 different groups or couples out on tour right now. And even though we were invited to Miami, we were invited to St. Augustine and different cities, other constellations of those 3 or 4 that are out have been invited too, but to other people, and other groups show up because we are attracting the ones we can hear it from. So it's like a perfect teaching, learning opportunity that happens when our mind is open and ready, and we hear it from certain ones, and we don't hear it from other ones. It's just how the mind works. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears, or when the teacher is ready, the student appears. So it's always in divine timing, and it's always perfect. And it's a course in miracles, and that's an amazing thing that you know, we're going to learn to live in miracles. It's not like the miracles that the Bible talks about making wine from water or making bread out of nothing. Or I mean, that might happen too, but it's a miraculous state of mind of experiencing the world in a perfect order. Like everything just happens very naturally and nothing is out of place. You don't feel like you're a victim to the world. You feel like you are in the oneness and that things really line up really beautifully. So that's the purpose of the Course in Miracles and the purpose of this book. So if you know, the course is really complete, so we don't really need other books. But if one wants like a helpful, practical guide, then this one it's a great companion to A Course in Miracles. Because I mean, we have experienced it firsthand to live with David Hoffmeister, and he's the teacher that I was called to go and live with instead of being in the Maharishi Center in Fairfield, Iowa, for TM. I was going to be with David, and he's very, very helpful teacher. He's walking the talk, talking the walk. Yeah. Any other questions?
I wonder if it's helpful to share about the tiny mat idea, because I know there are people who are so new to the course.
Sure, yeah.
And that just was a thought.
Yeah.
Because I love when he explains with the noodle.
Right.
I love that noodle.
Yeah. Yeah, the tiny mat idea, it's really cool you bring that up, because that's in the part of the hero of the dream, I think. Also came to me today. The tiny mad idea.
Tiny mad idea, yes.
Yeah. So that's the ego. That's the ego. It's only a tiny mad idea in the mind. So the ego, we could say it's the devil. In Christianity, it would be the devil. It would be the dark force, you know, the
Star Wars.
death. The Course also says it's a belief in death. The ego is a death wish. The ego wants you dead. That's what David said to one person one time. He said, shouldn't you love your ego and make peace with your ego? And he's like, the ego wants you dead. But, so it's helpful to know that the ego is just a thought in our mind. The ego is an attraction to guilt. And so in this, in the hero of the dream.
Wait, is there a healthy ego? That's
No.
Okay.
Not
no.
in this text.
There is no healthy ego.
I have to figure that. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
So there's no. Okay. So then.
So we are always guided. We are always listening and following guidance. Our mind. That's how our mind works. Because there are only two energies or two forces here, and we always listen either to the ego or to the spirit.
Okay.
It's not the ego and the spirit and our mind. No, it's the ego or the spirit, and we are identified as either of those. So every moment we make a decision to who to listen to or what to listen to. So the ego is never healthy or good, and the ego will, vanish when we realize who we are. We will see it was actually never there. It was the illusion. It was the doubt thought. So.
And in the Course it says you have a right mind, a wrong mind, and the decision maker. And the decision maker part of you decides what thought you're going to go with. Correct?
Yeah, you have a right mind or a wrong mind, and
Decision maker.
well, it's not really three. It's
Right. Which one are you going to go with?
yeah.
But that's how they describe it in the Course.
Right. Yeah, maybe we can look at that too. But let me talk about the tiny mad idea.
That we could think we were separate from God and not laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I can just quote it because I know it's so it says, into eternity where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. And in this forgetting to laugh, the idea seemed to become a real, and have real effects. And that's the world. But when the separation seemed to happen, the Holy Spirit immediately gave his answer and undid the whole dream in an instant. So we are not left. We are not left to dream a dream on the timeline, because the answer was given the moment the mind believed in the separation. The moment the tiny mad idea crept in, it's also the moment when the Holy Spirit gave his answer. So, and he says somewhere else in the course that history would not exist if you didn't keep doing the same mistake in the present. So it's that's a very interesting line. The history would not even exist unless we did the same mistake in the present. So the present moment is basically an invitation into our true self. The present moment is it's like, hey, can we be together again? It's the Holy Spirit's question. Can we be? Will you be with me now? It's the present moment. And if the mind says no, it has chosen the ego, and the dream is acted out. So that's why it's so empowering. We can practice every moment to see what we believe. And of course it's an unwinding. It's not like, because we could feel bad about, oh my God, I missed so many opportunities to choose right. But it's because we have spent a lot of time in the dream.